Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, pro physique athlete. Today I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step guide for how to lean bulk. How to bulk up without getting fat. As a natural wanting to build muscle, you're going to spend most of your time bulking because being in a calorie surplus is the most beneficial state for muscle growth. But a lot of people mess up bulking, and I have in the past as well. I remember going through this dreamer bulk in med school where I gained 30 pounds. I remember being on internal medicine and sitting down at a group meeting, and my staff doc, who was like my boss, was like, "Bill, maybe you should get some shirts that actually fit." And I was so proud that I was busting out of my shirts because I thought that it was all muscle. But I didn't realize that most of that was actually fat. And when you bulk up, fat has a way of infiltrating between your muscle fibers. So even though it actually looks like your arms and chest and back are bigger, when I ended up cutting down, all that size deflated and I had to suffer unnecessarily to get rid of all that excess fat. The solution to this problem is to lean bulk. And the idea behind lean bulking is that you gain weight at a rate that allows you to maximize muscle growth while minimizing additional fat. There's a maximum rate at which our body is able to build muscle, and once you reach that rate, any additional weight is going to be fat. So we really want to be aiming to bulk up slowly. You will hear people talk about these crazy transformations where they put on 30 pounds of quote lean muscle over a few months, and most of that is bull. Either that or they're on performance enhancing supplements. This is how to bulk up, step by step, naturally. The first step you should do before starting a lean bulk is to find your maintenance calories using scale weight. Maintenance calories are the number of calories that you would have to eat to keep your weight stable, and they're a good starting point before starting bulking or cutting. They basically serve as a baseline for the changes that you'll be making next. I see a lot of people out there talking about fancy BMR calculators and things online to figure out how many calories you need to maintain. But the best way to find out your maintenance calories is actually to use the scale. The way you do this is you keep a diet plan and keep track of your calories over a period of 1 to 2 weeks, where your weight is staying stable. If your weight is maintained during that period, then by definition, you're at maintenance calories. Scale weight is going to be the most accurate reflection here because your actual maintenance calories will be affected by a lot of different variables like your activity levels day to day, for example. Even if your weight isn't staying stable, you can approximate your maintenance calories using the 3,500 calorie per pound rule. This rule states that 1 pound of fat equals 3,500 calories. So if you gained 1 pound that week, you can approximate this as being in a 3,500 calorie surplus. Divided over 7 days means you were in a calorie surplus of 500 calories per day, and your actual maintenance calories was 500 lower than what you were actually eating. Next step. When lean bulking, one of the most important concepts is your rate of gain. Your rate of gain is really important because it determines your calorie intake, and it will determine how much additional fat you're putting on during your bulking phases. For beginners, that is, people in their first 1 to 2 years of serious training, I recommend gaining weight at a rate of 1 to 1.5% of your body weight per month. And for intermediate to advanced athletes, intermediates would be something like 3 to 5 years of serious training, and advanced people would be beyond 5 years. I'd recommend gaining weight at an even slower rate of 0.5 to 1% of your body weight gained per month. So for example, if you weigh 200 pounds, 1% of your body weight would be 2 pounds per month, divided by 4 weeks per month would be 0.5 pounds per week. The key with lean bulking is that you want to gain weight at a slow rate to minimize additional fat gain, but you want to bulk at a fast enough rate that you can actually detect the changes and be consistently in a calorie surplus. A lot of people try and follow a gaintaining or main gaining approach where they set calories around maintenance and just try and recomp. Recomp is where you build muscle and lose fat at the same time. That strategy can work for beginners, but beyond the beginner stage, you get slower and slower results, and eventually you really need to be in a calorie surplus to build muscle. So at an advanced level, body recomposition isn't really going to work that well, and you really want to get into a calorie surplus. The thing about a calorie surplus when bulking is that you need to be in that surplus consistently. So if you're aiming for a really small rate of gain, like a 1/4 of a pound per month, you could end up going a whole month and not actually gain any weight and just think that you gained that weight because of fluctuations in the scale, but you were actually at maintenance calories for that whole month, and you wouldn't be getting optimal results. So once you figure out your rate of gain, you can convert this into a calorie surplus using that 3,500 calorie rule. We already found that gaining 1 pound per week equals a 500 calorie daily surplus, so if you wanted to gain half a pound per week, that would be a 250 calorie daily surplus. Once you figure out your rate of gain for lean bulking, you can use your rate of gain to calculate your calorie intake. And the way we do this is to use the 3,500 calorie per pound rule. So gaining 1 pound equals 3,500 calories. If you spread that over 7 days, that's a 500 calorie surplus per day. And if you wanted to gain half a pound per week, that would be half of that, so 250 calories of surplus per day. You add that calorie surplus onto your maintenance calories, and that becomes your bulking calorie intake. You may find that your calorie intake for lean bulking is actually lower than you thought. Our North American culture sets up an expectation for us to eat lots and lots of calories. And this is the reason why obesity is such a big problem. I think that lean bulking at a slow rate, aiming for a more conservative calorie surplus, is going to be healthier. How do you figure out your macros for lean bulking? Once you figure out your calorie intake, the next step is going to be to calculate macros. The most important macro is protein, so I'd recommend setting protein first at 0.72 to 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. And that's equivalent to 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo per day. For reference, take this off of your healthy but lean body weight, so around 10 to 15% body fat for men or 18 to 25% for women. If you are obese, you can estimate your protein intake using 1 gram per centimeter of height. A lot of people I see in the gym are actually taking too much protein, and having more protein doesn't really help you. So I personally like to set protein around 1 gram per pound per day, because then I know I'm a little bit above the absolute minimum threshold, and if I miss a meal or something, I'll be fine. Once you determine your protein intake around 1 gram per pound per day, you'll want to set fats and carbs. And the way to calculate this is to subtract your protein calories from your total daily calories, and then use the remainder of your calories for fats and carbs. When you're bulking, the exact partitioning between fats and carbs actually doesn't matter that much. We actually don't require that many carbs for weight training. On the grand scale of athletics, say compared to being a triathlete, training in the gym really doesn't require that much energy in the form of carbs. That being said, there may be some potential benefit for having a higher carb approach, so I'd recommend trying a higher carb approach if you haven't. Now, if you don't want to actually sit down and calculate macros, you can totally just do this all intuitively as well. The main thing is to be able to eyeball your protein sources so that you know you're getting enough. Once you know your protein intake, which I do recommend you calculate, you can then fine tune your overall calories just by changing what you eat slightly here and there until you hit your desired rate of gain based on your scale. Remember, you want to be guiding changes in bulking based off of changes in your scale weight. If you're not gaining weight, then you're not in a calorie surplus, and if you're gaining weight too fast, then you want to dial back your intake. But if you have a very consistent meal structure based off of set portions, then you can absolutely do this all without actually calculating macros. You can just add and subtract a small amount of food here and there to make changes. To really optimize results with lean bulking, you'll want to look at nutrient timing, which is how you distribute your macros throughout the day. First of all, I recommend distributing your protein equally over 4 to 6 meals, spaced 3 to 5 hours apart. Having around 4 meals a day will optimize hypertrophy. I personally like going for 5 meals a day. Going for more becomes a headache in terms of planning. And if I'm used to having 5 meals a day, that means I can miss one and still be optimal at 4. You want to space your meals 3 to 5 hours apart, and this will make sure that you have protein available for your body all the time for muscle growth. Note that this is actually very reasonable. If you had 4 meals spaced 5 hours apart, you could have breakfast at 7, lunch at 12, dinner at 5 p.m., and a pre-bed meal at 10 p.m. So it really doesn't take that much sacrifice to optimize your nutrient timing for bodybuilding. How do you distribute your carbs and fats when you're lean bulking? You'll want to have 4 to 6 meals throughout the day, and I recommend distributing carbs pretty evenly but biased a bit towards the peri-workout window. This just means you want to have some carbs in your pre and post workouts. You want to have some carbs beforehand so that they are available for training, and you want to make sure you have glycogen stores topped up. You also want to have carbs after so that your body is in abundance when it comes to nutrients for optimal muscle growth. Now I put a star here because there are some exceptions. If you don't do well eating a lot before training, then it's fine to have a small pre-workout meal. As long as your glycogen stores are topped up from having plenty of calories and carbs in the preceding meals and in the day before, you're gonna be fine. If you're trying to lean bulk, you'll want to have something to eat before bed. I would recommend having a slow digesting protein source in your pre-bed meal and place fats here. We want to have some protein before bed so that it's available for us to build muscle with overnight. For the most part, if you have a solid food protein source, this is going to be slow digesting, and it will be slower digesting than a powder. If you are going to use protein powder, I would recommend casein over whey because it takes longer to digest. Note that you can also slow down digestion by increasing the complexity of the meal. And this is why I recommend placing some fats in your pre-bed meal. As long as you have the calories available to do so, this will be a good place to place fats rather than say in your pre-workout meal when you don't really need them. So that was a step-by-step guide on setting up your nutrition for bulking. How has bulking been going for you? Let us know in the comments below. Now that you've learned the basics of how to set up your meal plan for bulking, check out this video to learn some more advanced tips where I really go into some fine details to optimize muscle growth. Make sure you subscribe for more top-notch science-based fitness advice, and we'll see you next time.